Hello, dear students. Welcome to e-learning of new class. And I'm here with you, chapter 2, the address from your snapshot. Here about the writer, Margo Minco. And she was born on 31st March 1920 and she dies at the age of 95. Her pen name, Margo Minco. Occupation, she was a journalist, writer. And language, she belongs to Dutch. Here is some fact about the chapter, the story about the chapter. It is a story of a girl whose mother, Mrs. S., gave their belonging to a lady called Mrs. Darling during the World War II. Unfortunately, during the war, Mrs. S. dies, but her daughter survives. Her daughter first thinks to leave the belonging of her mother's as she thought it will make her remember the good old time and she will then regret it. But later she became so much curious to see her mother's belonging. But Mrs. S. Darling acted like she don't know and she refused to recognize her. And after that, S. daughter, the girl, she tries to take all her belongings to back. But when she finds them, the object which makes her sad or just the memories of old from life, and she decided to just leave them all behind and to move forward. Here, students, here's the picture of war in Holland. And then here Mrs. Darling's frequent visit. Mrs. Darling came frequently. Every time she visited, she took something with her. One day she took all the silverware. Then she took away the antique plates which was hung on the wall. Mrs. S. told her daughter that Mrs. Darling wanted to save all her articles. It was wartime. If they had to leave this place, they would lose everything. So the daughter wanted to know if there was a written agreement that Mrs. Darling would return all the articles safely. The girl could not trust anyone so blindly. Mrs. S. replied that if she was not necessary, and Mrs. S. was thankful to Mrs. Darling for that what she was doing, for all her that happened years ago. Now, after the war, Mrs. S. writers that is she is dead, but her daughter survives. So Mrs. Daughter decided to bring back her mother's belonging from Mrs. Darling, and she left. Mrs. Darling acts like she don't know her. She avoid that Mrs. S. daughter and the girl try to get her belonging back, but when she finds them, the object which evokes memory of her old life, she decides to leave them all behind and resolve to move. So your first meeting, part 1. In the beginning of the story, it's narrated how the protagonist was given cold reception when she went to a native place after the war in search of her mother's belonging. After ringing the bell of house number 46 in the Marconi Street, a woman opened the door. On being introduced, the woman kept staring at her in silence. There was no sign of recognition of her face. The woman was wearing her mother's green knitted cardigan. The narrator could understand that she had made no mistake. She asked the woman whether she knew her mother. The woman could not deny this. The narrator wanted to talk to her for some time, but the woman cautiously closed the door. And the narrator stopped for something and then she left that place. Part 2. The subsequent section, the memories of the narrator's bygone days become so light. Her that provided her address years ago during the war. She went to home for few days. She finds the various things were missing that time, what the mother has told Mrs. Darling. She was an old acquaintance, and that time she whatever she possesses, the Mrs. Darling which she has, and now she wanted to go and find out each and everything. And she went to that address, that is number 46 Marconi Street. After many days, the was curious to take a record of possession that mother gave to Mrs. Darling. Now, students, it is third part. A third time she visited to the address. And the last is concluding part of the story describes the second visit to the narrator. As the narrator's first visit yielded to no result, she planned to go once again. And interestingly, a girl of 15 opened the door to her. And that time her mother was not there at home. The narrator expressed her wish to wait for her. The girl accompanied her to the passage. The narrator saw an old-fashioned iron candle holder hanging next to a mirror. The girl made her to sit in the living room and went inside. The narrator was horrified to find herself in the room, and she did not know. And everything was, whichever she saw, that the things were kept in very strange manner, the haphazard manner, and that atmosphere made her in trouble. She had no courage to look around her, but she no longer had deserved or desire to possess them again, and she got up and she walked to the door and left the room. She resolved to forget the address and moved on. So students, here is a character sketch of the narrator. Margo Minco is a Jewish girl who faced the pain, suffering and the losses, including the irreparable loss of her dear mother in war. She is a brave and courageous girl who faces the challenges of a lonely life after the war is over. She is attached to her mother's thing, and after returning to her home city, she goes to Mrs. Darling to claim her mother's things back. Mrs. Darling's cold, indifferent and discouraging behavior further depresses her. She had already suffered many losses, and including the irreparable loss of her dear mother. Finally, she decides to leave her mother's things and forget them forever, and she will evoke her mother's memory more often and make her more miserable. Students, here are the short question answers for you to just write down in your copy. And here is the word meaning. So just go through that word meaning and just write down in your copy. And at the last, it is a question for self-assessment. So students, already the lesson is explained, and in this video, I took all these questions which is there. So just practice it in your transfer copy and write it. Okay. Okay. Thank you students so much.